Hi, I'm Jo Field and this is my video for the Horsebloggers vlogging challenge. My questions today have been set by Becca Vincent at a bay, a grey and a chestnut. So, question number 1. When positive reinforcement is a fairly new and rare phenomenon in the equine world, what inspired you to first take on this approach? So, 10 years ago, my thoroughbred chestnut mare, Missy, had a nasty accident and it resulted in her requiring 6 to 9 months box rest. Absolutely dreaded it, wondered how we were going to get through it. At that time I was doing quite a lot of dog training and really enjoying it. I was using clicker training and so I thought, what can I do in a 12 by 12 foot space with a horse really that's perhaps going to struggle with that confinement. So I thought I'd give dog training a go. And I successfully over that time retaught some, handling things that were perhaps issues, so like moving over, picking up feet or rugging up. She'd maybe show a little bit of unhappiness when I was doing that, so I stripped them all back and taught them like I would teach a dog a new behaviour. And had a lot of success with it really. I also taught her how to stand at a wall target, so I tied I think it was a plastic bottle that I tied to the wall tie, so I could go into the stable, say Missy and target, and she'd go and stand by that in quite a relaxed way, and I could carry out all the the husbandry things, grooming and sort of putting on rugs, etc. So that was a really good success. And then when that box rest came to an end, you get to the part which we all dread, which is when the vet says to you, 5 minutes walking in hand, which is that was just like flying a kite, and I was just there hanging on like a little limpet for grim death. So I really struggled at that time to translate what I'd learnt in that stable environment to that stressful situation. She did come back into full work, and I did use clicker training, over that time for odds and ends really, just to explain things to her or break it down in a more simple and understandable way. But again, I was really having quite a lot of trouble translating using that method across everything that I did. So if we fast forward then to 2016, so she's in her late teens, and I'd got an email from the horsey physio that I used, Tim, and it was a YouTube link to Padma Video's biomechanics video, and I watched that and it just absolutely stopped me in my tracks. So I'd always sort of known that when a horse works properly, they work softly through the back, but watching that video, it just really made me want to stop everything that I was doing and just build up Missy's way of going to be better and healthier really. So at the time that she was on box rest, I'd also taught her how to stretch down just by giving a verbal cue. So I was able quite quickly to transfer that cue onto a lunge line, and then she would be able to do it in walk and trot on both reins, and also she was starting to stretch down in ridden work as well. So she'd had teeth checked, back checked and tack checked, so we knew that we were good to crack on. Because I'd achieved that stretching down and softness quite quickly, even though I'd spent sort of the previous 14, 15 years with her trying in vain, I thought, well, where do we go now? So I thought, well, I'll actually start looking for a little bit more push and engagement from behind, and as soon as I started doing that, she just got it. And so she's combining the stretch down with a bit more push from behind. One day she just pulled this cadenced trot that was in self-carriage out of the bag, and from that day really we built up duration, and she will offer it under saddle. So as soon as I get on really, I don't have to put pressure on her to do any of this. She'll pretty much offer it to me. And I think that when you find something that feels like you've flicked a switch and you suddenly are not fighting with your horse and you're starting to dance with them, I think that's when you know that you're onto a winner really. So from that moment I decided to apply it across everything that I did with them. Question number 2. what are your top feeding tips? I think it's about keeping it really simple and just not forgetting what the horse's digestive system has evolved to deal with. So, you know, lots of forage and keep the sugar and starch at an absolute minimum. Both of my horses are veterans, so Missy, my thoroughbred, is in her late teens, and Mr D, my cob, is in his late 20s, so they both have regular dental checks. Mr D is actually wearing his teeth out, so he has access to Equilage Veteran Soft, because I've noticed that he has started quidding, so he does need a specific softer forage so that he can cope with his needs, really. Question 3. How would you describe equestrian life to somebody that doesn't have horses? I think at this time of year I'd describe it as cold, wet, muddy, caffeine fueled and broke. I am lucky enough to keep my horses at home, so I can be quite chilled out with it. I kind of can make my own decisions, and quite a few years ago my riding instructor Ruth had said to me, "Jo, riding and dealing with your horse is about what's important to you," and that really changed the way that I looked at equestrian life, and I could drop the things that I felt like I should be doing but maybe wasn't enjoying, which was, you know, like a really good sort of nudge in the right direction. And I think that once I've dealt with my horses' welfare, well-being, safety and my safety, we can crack on with whatever we like. I'm quite nerdy and I'm quite enjoying learning quite a lot about the science of the way that horses behave and learn. You know, I'm a proper amateur and hobbyist at this, so I'm not professing to be any sort of expert, but even though I've had my horses quite a few years, I think that every day I can go out and think, what am I going to go do with them today? And it could be something like, you know, last year I taught Missy to bang a bass drum pedal and you know, really clout the drum. And it might seem like a bit of a trick thing to do, but it was actually a set of complex behaviours to put together to get one action. And so yeah, I quite like that about equestrian life, but I think that that's perhaps because of the type of horses that I've got, the journey that I've gone down, and actually having that freedom of you know, kind of doing what I want, really. Question 4. Where do you see your blog in 5 years? I think first of all, I'd really like for me to feel the same way about my blog as I do now, which is to have that sense of sort of excitement and anticipation about writing it and seeing it published. I think the reason for that being is if I feel like I've ever lost that, then I don't think the blog would be what it is now. I think that, you know, obviously it would be nice for it to be a bit more popular. Who doesn't want that? I think that's kind of the human ego bit of it, really, but deep down I think it's because genuinely I quite like helping people, and I quite like helping their animals even more. And I think if the things that I'm doing and the things that I'm writing and the little bits of videos that I'm putting together can help, you know, the odd person that's out there, and popularity is a way of finding those people, and you know, by that route I end up helping more people, then I'd be quite a happy bunny at that. Question 5. What do you love most about your horses and why? I love that they're absolutely chalk and cheese. They're completely opposites to each other. We've got thoroughbred chestnut mare and all the quirks that you'd expect to go with that, and we've got OAP cob that's spent a good chunk of his life in a riding establishment type situation and had been quite institutionalised because of that experience. Neither horses have been particularly easy. They both came with quite a lot of baggage initially, and it's taken a lot of working through that. I've learnt lots from that. I think they've both taken me down a path that I perhaps wouldn't have gone down if I'd have had a horse that was a little bit more well adjusted, if you like. I like that they both learn in completely different ways. So last year I thought well, I might have a go at teaching them Spanish walk, and I'm absolutely no aficionado, and the finished product is probably not technically great, somebody that knows what they're doing, but I was working within the limits of their physical ability, given that they are sort of older animals with perhaps, you know, old injuries, etc. And they completely learn different ways. So I could look at Missy, and if I noticed a slight leg lift on the forward movement when she was walking, I could click and reward that. And literally within one session, she just got the idea that I was clicking for slighter leg lift, and we got that elevated leg and forward movement. I couldn't believe that. And then a few short sessions later, she would actually offer it ridden again. So that she's very good at sort of understanding what her body's doing, and me spotting something and saying it's actually that bit that I want to pull out and enhance. Whereas Mr. D, he's kind of more steady away. He's, like I say, he's in his late 20s, and the way that I teach him Spanish walk is I had to teach him to lift his knee to touch a target, which he did. He quite enjoyed doing that, and then I'll ask for the forward movement afterwards. So very opposite ways of teaching the same thing, and I think that's very reflective of the way that I handle them every day, and I think that's taught me huge amounts. So that concludes my 5 questions. So I would trot on over to a bay, a grey and a chestnut to see how Becca has got on with the questions that I've set for her. Thanks for listening. That's terrible.